What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you to Team Zuby live stream number 7. I hope you are doing well. Give it a little while for people to tune in. I'm going to do some shout outs in the meantime. The title of today's episode, Stop Oppressing Yourself. That's some real talk. We're going to talk around it. Usual format, we're going to open up with the Q&A. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the chat and I will get to them. There is no requirement to do a super chat, but if you would like to support the channel and you would like to support my work, then the super chats are always appreciated. If you do drop a super chat, I will prioritize your question or your comment or your statement or whatever else it is you want to put out there. So I'm going to open it up right there. Shout out to everybody joining now. I see you, Mickle, Jonathan, 242 Assembly, Spectrum, what does that say? Spectrum Elf, Ginger Beloved, Mohammed Karimi. What's up, guys? Thank you very much for tuning in. I would like to open up the Q&A. So let me know what questions you guys have got, and I will get to them. On this episode, I want to talk about everything having to do with the theme, the title of the video, because I think a lot of people are out there oppressing themselves right now. I think there's a lot of people up to a whole bunch of craziness. So I want to speak on that and I want to talk around that a little bit. Shout out to John. I see you've just joined. Got more people joining. So firstly, if you guys have any questions for the Q&A, any things you want me to answer, then please drop them in the chat right now and I will get to them. I think I'll start with the topic a little bit. What inspired it was a tweet I wrote earlier today. Let me just find this actually. So where's the statement? I've been talking too much smack on here. So I said, millions upon millions of the most privileged people to ever walk the planet have managed to convince themselves that they are deeply oppressed. Thus, they spend all their time trying to slay invisible dragons. It's quite amazing, really. Victimhood is a mindset. Now, that's real. I want to go into more detail on all aspects of that during this stream, because we're seeing a lot of weird stuff, and we've been seeing a lot of weird stuff over the past several years. And I want to talk a little bit about where that's coming from, what it could lead to, and why people should sort of rejig their perspective and how they can do that. Okay, so we got some questions coming through in the chat. Remember to drop your questions. Shout out to everybody who's just joining. Welcome to the live stream. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. If you do a super chat, I will prioritize your question, but feel free to ask it and I will try to answer any interesting questions right there. Okay, so the first question we got here is, this is one from Mike Wright. Do you think the left and right will become friends again, like in the thousands? That's a good question. I assume you are talking about the political left and the political right. You know, I try not to even use these terms so much because I think that they lack nuance and there's a use to them, but labels have their limits, right? And I think the reality is that most people already get on with each other, right? If you look at the media, if you spend too much time on social media, if you get really, really drawn up into the hype and a lot of stuff on the internet, then it can totally seem like everybody is just fully in on the sort of divisive political hype, demonizing people who disagree with them or who vote differently to them. And this is certainly a thing in the real world too. I think we've noticed it. It is a fact, and they have actually done studies showing that political polarization is increasing. But with that said, most people aren't on that hype train. Most people are not even politically that active to begin with. Most people don't even vote. If you speak to majority of people, I think probably at least, okay, maybe not majority, but I think at least 40% of people in the world probably wouldn't necessarily even associate with what's called the left or the right, right? People generally are, a lot of people are simply apolitical. And then even those who are political, they tend to sort of draw from each side. It's rare to find someone who's like 100% right-wing or conservative in everything, let alone someone who is 100% lefty on and liberal on absolutely everything. They do exist, but they're a real minority, and those two sides are never going to be able to get on well with each other. But yeah, I think generally people already are friends, and I think will remain so as long as people stay sane and people remember to just treat each other decently, whether they agree on everything or not. I mean, it's very hard to find anybody you agree with 100% on anything. So if that's going to be your bar for having friends, then you're going to have a very, very lonely life. Question here from Ginger Beloved. How do you feel about Microsoft potentially buying TikTok? So for those who aren't familiar with TikTok, it's a huge social media platform, probably has around 1 billion monthly users now. And it looks like it's already been banned in India and I think a few other countries. And it seems like, I believe Trump a couple of days ago said he's planning to make moves to ban it in the USA as well. This is because there are fears that it could be being used as a tool by the Chinese government to spy on citizens, including American citizens. Now, I haven't looked into this in that much detail. I don't personally use TikTok, despite the fact that I've had tons of people telling me that I should build my platform on there. Part of why I never wanted to, besides the fact I'm not drawn into the content of making like weird little dance videos and stuff and skits, is that I was aware that this could happen, right? I was aware that there were potential surveillance issues, potential security issues. I just never personally felt 100% comfortable with using it. I know that, I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that companies like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., they all track a lot. Google, man, how can I forget Google? They track a lot of our data as it is. But I guess the fear there was that the Chinese government, the CCP, Communist Party of China, yeah, they're pretty nefarious, right? There's a lot of shady stuff going on over there. So I can understand the security risk. I don't know how much of it just has to do with the fact that there's a trade war and there's some animosity between the US and China, et cetera. I'm sure that's certainly a factor, but I think there are valid security concerns as well. So in terms of Microsoft potentially buying TikTok, again, I haven't looked into it in much detail, but maybe that could be a good move. I think if Microsoft is an American company, so I guess if they owned it, then people would be more comfortable with it. But do the people who own TikTok want to sell it? I don't know. I don't know. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions here. Should we boycott sports leagues for supporting far left theories? That's up to you. That's up to you. You know, you can boycott whatever you want. You can boycott whatever you want, right? I'm not a huge fan of boycotting stuff specifically, but if I'm not interested in something and I don't want to patronize it, or I feel like the values go against my own, then I simply don't. I don't know if you'd call that a boycott, maybe some kind of personal boycott, but yeah, if something strongly goes against my own principles and values, then I won't support it. But I think that's a very individual question. And maybe it depends on how far they go with it too. You know, there's some stuff that can be tolerated, but if you feel that it can't and you can't watch it anymore, then fair enough. Okay, let's see here. Got a question here from Mickle Diz. Hey, so I'm a new fan of both your politics and your music. What do you think are your best and worst albums? Wow, okay. I think my best album is Perseverance. It's literally a best of album, so it better be my best one. What's my worst album? What's my worst album? I mean, from my own standpoint, I think I improve over time. So my first album is close to a lot of people's hearts. I don't think my first album is bad at all, but I think from a rapping perspective and a sort of technical perspective, in my own personal opinion, my very first album, Commercial Underground, would be the one that, by my own sort of objective standards, or I guess subjective, would be the one I consider the worst, not because it's bad, but just because it was my first one, and I've gotten a lot better since then. So that's my thoughts there. Okay. All right. I'm going to answer one more question, and then I want to talk a little bit about the idea of not oppressing yourself. Okay. Let's see. Got a question here from Tom Osman. Shout out to Tom, actually an old school friend. What's the one thing you do that brings you the most clarity? I go to the gym. That's probably the thing that legit gives me the most clarity. Going to the gym is like a sanctuary for me, man. Like when I'm in the gym, I don't think about all the other stuff, right? I'm not thinking about all the other things going on. It's just like an hour and a half where I just focus on the task at hand, getting stronger, making gains, making progress. And that's the thing that brings me a whole lot of clarity. So That's the prime thing for me. Okay, awesome. I am going to talk a little bit about oppressing yourself. So for people who have just joined, I'm going to repeat this tweet again. It's actually doing pretty well. It's got almost 10,000 likes and 2,500 retweets in a couple of hours. So I wrote, millions upon millions of the most privileged people to ever walk the planet have managed to convince themselves that they are deeply oppressed. Thus, they spend all their time trying to slay invisible dragons. It's quite amazing, really. Victimhood is a mindset. Now, the reason why I say this is, I mean, you guys know what's going on. You've seen what's been going on for the past several years. You've seen what's been going on for the past several months and for the past several weeks. There's a whole lot of people out in the street. It's been in the U.S., it's been in the U.K., been all over. There's just all kinds. Man, I don't even know where to begin with this. I mean, the demonstrations and protests are just one part, and to begin with, that was justified. I don't know what's going on now in places like Portland, etc. I don't even know what people are yelling about and fighting about. But this is the point. I don't think they know either. If you look at the people who are doing this, and look, let me say something and let me make this very, very clear. If you are tuning into this live stream, it's highly likely, and no, it's not highly likely. It is a fact that you are one of the most privileged people to ever walk the face of the earth, right? 2020, we are at the most advanced, most equal, most fair, most tolerant, safest, most secure time period in human history. Period. This doesn't mean that everything is perfect, but nothing is perfect, right? Human beings are flawed. Everything is always going to be flawed. And I think people really, really do not think about this, right? I think people don't think about the chronological aspect, like just the fact, if you were born in the last 60 years, you've just inherited the best time to be alive, right? There's less people dying of violent crime. There's less people dying in wars, less people dying of disease and pestilence. I mean, even if you look at the pandemic we're dealing with, if you compare that to historical pandemics, Spanish flu, Black Death, smallpox outbreaks, etc., it pales so hard in comparison. We're talking about a disease with an over 99% survival rate, probably 99.9% if you are not part of a vulnerable population, especially someone who's, say, under the age of 50. And we have look at the technology we're using right now. I'm sitting here in my living room talking to well over 100 people in real time, streaming it across this magical thing called the internet, where we can all connect with each other and we can find information essentially for free. We can make friends. We can conduct business. We can find things. Our technology is mind blowing. If you compare what we have now, like even just the lights around me, the electricity, the architecture outside, vehicles, etc., vast, vast, vast majority of human history, 99.9% of human history, none of that existed. None of it existed. If you go back even just a couple hundred years ago, right? Just a couple hundred years ago, you had millions and millions of people, very high. You still have millions of people, but it was things like slavery were standard. Right? Just go back a couple hundred years ago. Slavery was widespread across the world, the whole world, millions and millions and millions of people living in bondage, not just living in bondage, but people thought that it was okay. You had wars breaking out all the time. You had a huge percentage of people dying in childbirth, mothers dying, giving birth to children, all of these gnarly diseases, which we had no cures for. You had people didn't have running water, flushing toilets. People were just throwing poo out the window. Human history is savage. Human history is savage. People were just rolling into countries, conquering stuff. Racism just rife, sexism rife, homophobia rife, every kind of ism and phobia. Man, it's crazy. This is sort of the first time in human history. If you live in the modern Western world, you live in Western Europe, you live in the UK, you live in America, Canada, etc., even a lot of developing countries, man, things are good, right? Things are good. And let's take the second part of that, right? So we've talked about the historical aspect, which we can get into more, but think about the think about the global aspect, right? So I'm talking about we're talking about oppression. Okay? Real oppression is happening in the world. Real oppression has been happening my entire lifetime. But you know what? It's not happening in the UK. It's not happening in the US. It's not happening in Canada. It's not happening in Australia, right? It's not to say these places are perfect, like I'm saying, but I'm not comparing to perfect. I'm comparing to history, and I'm comparing to the wider world. If you look at what's going on in China right now, they think they have over 1 million of the Uyghur Muslims. They've got them in concentration camps. People are being forced sterilized. People are being legitimately oppressed. And a lot of the world is turning a blind eye to it. A lot of people are not talking about that. You have the Yazidis. You have people being persecuted, whether they're Christians or Muslims or Jews, all around the world, in different parts of the world, in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East, etc. There is real oppression going on. In Libya, they have open air slave markets, right? Since they toppled Gaddafi, left that power vacuum. You've had ISIS running wild for the past couple of years, even though that's sort of been quelled. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world, man. There's really a lot of bad stuff going on. I mean, if you wanted to be like a legitimate, I'm not going to use the term social justice warrior because that's a pejorative, but if you wanted to be a sort of legitimate activist and you really wanted to activate for human causes and human rights and things that are unfair and true oppression, there are a lot of examples. There are a lot of examples, but they're just not in the countries we live in for the most part. You know, stuff happens here and there are things to deal with, of course, but you've got so many people now, literally millions of people, who are acting and crying and whining and complaining every single day about this invisible oppression that apparently they're facing, whether it's for their skin color or their gender or their sexuality, their race, their ethnicity, etc. These are people who are again, like I said, some of the most privileged people in the world, right? Like I could sit here and I could be doing a live stream every single day talking about how difficult and impossible and challenging and horrible it is to be black in the UK. But I'd be a liar. I'd be a liar. I'd be being someone who's not being gracious and not being grateful and not having perspective, because I can recognize, it's funny, people like to use this term, check your privilege, right? And I actually do check my privilege, right? I've been checking my privilege since before that was a popular term. And it's like, man, I am blessed. I'm in the 1%, right? We're not just talking like wealth and money. People get obsessed with wealth and money. But if I look at what I have and the opportunities I have, compared to the vast majority of people, both around the world, but also who have ever lived, everybody who came before me, like, what do I have to complain about? I've got so much opportunity, I'm healthy, I'm safe, got access to all these great things, great people, great technology. I've got a wonderful family. I've got wonderful friends. I'm healthy. So many things to be grateful for. And it just amazes me how many people also have all of these things, but the only way they can view the world is with this horribly pessimistic and cynical and negative mindset, always looking at the bad and never considering even for a moment how good things actually are. And that's why I titled this "Stop Oppressing Yourself," because so many people get literally, like, nobody in the modern world. If you live in the modern Western world, I'm going to tell you some real talk right here. Nobody is going to oppress you like you oppress yourself, right? Nobody cares about you enough to oppress you like you're going to oppress yourself. So if you feel oppressed, then it's internal, right? It's generally going to be internal. It's the way that you are looking at the world. It's your own mindset, and that's what's going to hold you back. That's going to stop you from seeing opportunities. It's going to stop you from seizing opportunities. It's going to stop you from seeing the best in people, from making new friends, etc. And that's a shame. And it's a shame. And it's a shame that it's become such an industry, right? It's almost like it's trendy to be a victim now, right? It used to be cool not to embrace victimhood. It used to be cool to take personal responsibility, to, have a stiff upper lip, keep your head up, keep on working hard even when things get difficult, deal with strife, deal with situations, deal with struggle, and not just be whining and complaining about it constantly. And now it's like the opposite, right? I say some of the things I'm saying right now, and then people want to attack me for not perpetuating this victimhood mentality, for not having it myself and not encouraging other people to also feel like they're being victimized by some imaginary construct or being, right? Whether this is some form of ism or obia, right? Or whether this is some system or something structural, institutional, systemic. You can't ever see it. You can't ever touch it. People don't like to define it, but it's just sort of out there in the ether. If you're a feminist, you might think the patriarchy is oppressing you. Like men are just sort of gathering every week and, working how we can put the boot down on women. Some black people feel like, all the white folks are gathering every couple days and, working out how they can put the boot down on black people. All the straight people are working out how they can put the boot down on all the gay people and all the trans people, etc. And it's just like that. Nah, that's not the reality of the modern world. And that's good, right? That's good, because there was a time where, okay, maybe there weren't weekly meetings and such, but there was a time, you don't have to go back too long ago to see where and when there was real oppression in these countries. And look, I understand that some historical things always affect the present and will continue to affect the future. But what I'm saying is, I think if our ancestors could look at all of us right now, they'd just be like, man, they're living in heaven. Like, what is this world? How are they, they have access to all this amazing stuff. They're so safe. What happened to all the diseases? How are people living for so long? How do people have access to all of this stuff? Even the poor people are fat, right? Even the so-called poor people living in poverty are overweight, right? They still have plasma TVs and flashy smartphones and cars and all this stuff. And we just have lost perspective. We've just become totally unmoored from this perspective in many ways. Not everybody, but some people. So yeah, I just think it's something that people really need to think about. And if it helps, travel. There's one reason why I recommend people to travel, because it just gives you such a better perspective on things. Like if you just go around to different countries and go to different places, you don't need to stay forever. You don't need to live there. But just by seeing different things, you gain the understanding of okay, I see. I've got some perspective, right? If you're someone who lives in the USA or lives in the UK, and you travel to even just some developing countries and you witness sort of, you don't, like I said, you don't need to even live in it, right? You just see it. You witness more sort of like true poverty, people who are struggling for food, struggling for water, don't have access to toilets or clean water, electricity, certainly don't have access to any kind of consistent internet or, Wi-Fi or Netflix or whatever, food. I can just go across the street and I can buy in the supermarket across the street, there's probably 20 different kinds of milk. 20 different kinds of milk. There's 50 kinds of everything. So much choice, right? Everything. You can get milk from things I didn't even know you can milk. You got cow milk in 20 different kinds. You got lactase-free cow milk in different kinds. You got goat milk. You got almond milk. How do you milk an almond? You got almond milk. You got cashew milk. You got coconut milk. Got rice milk, oat milk, that's just milk. There's everything. It's all just there. You don't even need to talk to a human being. You just scan the thing, tap your card like magic, and you walk out there. You just walk out there. You've got all your nutrition. You're all sorted, and you've got all of this. You've just got this magic bag of food. You don't need to go hunting. You don't need to farm. You don't need to worry about bad harvests. Man, it's crazy, and and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's just that I feel like as human beings, it's like our society has advanced so much and we haven't. And I think so many of the problems that we have now are sort of, they're problems of excess, aren't they? Right? So many people are just bored, right? People are just bored. And I think that every human being seeks to have some struggle. We all need some struggle. And, it seems like when struggle is absent, when real dangers and a need for survival are absent, people invent new struggles, right? The human brain is wonderful, and people just conjure up made up stuff to feel upset by, to feel oppressed by, to feel angry about. Not only do they imagine it, but other people try to indoctrinate them into it, right? In the school, maybe some of it comes from friends, even from family. Some of it comes from teachers, university lecturers, politicians, etc. People want you to feel like you're oppressed, right? Not everybody, again, not everybody, but so many people, millions of people are pushing this message that, you know what, you should be mad. You should be angry, right? The world owes you. You're entitled. You're not getting what you want. You deserve this. You got a degree, so you should automatically be able to walk in and earn $100 an hour, right? You got this, so you're entitled to that. You just exist. You breathe, so you're entitled to free money. You breathe, so you're entitled to other people's labor. You're entitled to this. You're entitled to that. You're entitled to that. And it's not a good mindset, and it's not good for the world either, right? It's not good because we're not entitled to much in reality, right? You know, a lot of the stuff that we've already got, we're probably not even entitled to it. We're just, as I said earlier, we're just lucky. Like, we're just lucky we were born in this time. We're lucky we're in some of the countries that we are, and we just have access to this stuff because, like I said, 99% of people to ever exist never had this, right? There's no way. Can you imagine what I'm doing right now? Can you imagine telling someone about this even 30 years ago? Maybe even 20 years ago, like 30 years ago, let alone 100 years ago, let alone 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. You say, yeah, how would you even explain it? How do you even explain the internet to someone? How do you even explain the internet? How do you explain a smartphone, let alone explaining podcasts and live streams and the fact that you can sit in a living room and reach thousands or even millions of people from a smartphone or from a computer? Like, what is it? If you brought someone over from the past into the modern day, I think the first thing they'd wonder is like, what is this thing? What are these? What's this little black rectangle of magic that everyone has? What kind of witchcraft is this? What is this? What do you mean it does everything? Like, what's a phone? Right? They wouldn't know what a phone is, let alone it's got the internet, it's a computer. Oh, it's a camera. Oh, you can take pictures. Oh, it's a video camera too. Oh, you can stream too. So you can have a video camera and you can also broadcast it live in real time to people all over the world. Right? It's crazy. The whole thing is crazy, and I just feel like we haven't even caught up, man. I think human beings just haven't caught up because we're the exact same people we were, certainly from a, let's say, an evolutionary standpoint. We're the same people as our grandparents were. It's not like the technology's changed, but we're just the same. Technology's changed, but we're just the same. So, yeah, that's just some of my thoughts on that. I can go into it in a little bit more detail, but what I want to do is I want to open it up a little. I want to open it up again for more questions. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Like I said, no obligation to do a super chat. If you do a super chat, I will make sure I get to your question quicker and I will prioritize it. But feel free to drop some questions in the chat. I will freestyle a little bit up until then, and I will give you guys a couple announcements as well. So feel free, drop a question, and I will get to it. I'm just thinking of some things that have happened. So I featured on a bunch of podcasts recently. I was on the Brett Weinstein's Dark Horse podcast recently. I saw that's, I think, on YouTube. I think it's done over approaching 150,000 views already, which is amazing. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in for that. It was a fantastic conversation. If you haven't checked it out yet, we spoke about a whole bunch of different issues, and I think it was really, really interesting. Got some great feedback on that. What other big podcasts have I been on? I did one with Anthony Pompliano, who is a well-known sort of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investor and content creator. I did a podcast with him recently. His podcast is called The Pomp Podcast, POMP. So if you are interested in checking out more Zuby content, you can check that one out. In terms of ones you guys may have missed, I also was on Michaela Peterson's podcast not so long ago. That's Jordan Peterson's daughter, if you're not familiar. I plan to have her on my podcast. So there have been a whole bunch of them. If you've just gone Zuby, just search Zuby on YouTube or on any platform, any podcasting platform, then you'll find me. So let's take a little sip of the water, and then I'll get to some of your questions. Okay, let's see what we got here. Like I said, feel free to drop your questions. Feel free to drop your questions. Let's see what we got. This is a great point here. Someone wrote, "You would be burned if you tried explaining it in the past." Sorcery, yeah, that's right. If you try to explain the technology and even some of the medicine and science and stuff that we have now to someone from years ago, they'd probably like just kill you, because they'd be like, "No, this person's a demon coming from another dimension. Get rid of him, burn him up." Let's see what we got here. Yeah, that's a great point. Someone was hunter-gatherer. I think it's meant to say hunter-gatherer with a smartphone. Yeah, that's basically what we are, isn't it? We think we're all advanced and stuff, but we're not massively. Let's see what the questions are. Okay, question from Mary. How do we teach people to be kinder to each other? It's a good question. I mean, we learn this as children, don't we? I think people just forget. I think that's all it is. I don't think we need to teach people. I think people just need to remember that lesson. Most children, assuming they have parents and any kind of decent teachers, teach them to be kind to each other. But I think people just forget this as they get older. You know, a lot of stuff that people need to know was taught to them as children. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, we haven't got too many questions here, but you're welcome to add them in if you see them. But I'll get to the ones we got. Zuby, ever thought of doing a feature with Tom McDonald? I bet you guys would make a killer track. We were actually chatting in Twitter DMs last week. We haven't discussed any collaborations yet, but I know he listened to OK Dude and he likes it, and I'm a fan of his music, so that would be dope. I'd love to get him. I'd love to get him on a track. I'd also love to have him on my podcast as well. So let's see if we can make that happen in 2020 or maybe next year. Okay, we got our first super chat here. So Chris Thompson sends $5. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. He wrote, "Have you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning? He was writing about some of these topics in the 40s. I haven't. I've heard of the book and I've heard of Viktor Frankl, but I haven't actually read any of his work. So, you know, I think a lot of the ideas that I put out there, I think most of the ideas that people put out there are not brand new. You know, like a lot of intelligent people have lived before us, come before us, and have said a lot of things which are very prescient, but which we repeat them in different words, but not many ideas are totally original. So I haven't yet read what's it called, Man's Search for Meaning. I haven't read it yet, but I will try to get to it. I can't show you guys my bookshelf here, but I've got a lot of books to read. So we will get that done. And thank you for the super chat, by the way. I appreciate it. Let's see what else we have here. There's an interesting comment from John. He wrote, "When I was a kid, we didn't even have duvets or central heating or double glazing. In winter, we had to scrape away the ice from the inside of the windows to be able to look outside." There we go. You know, it's a little bit of perspective, and that's, you know, I'm assuming John is less than 100 years old. So that's not so long ago. And, you know, that's still the reality for tons of people, millions of people still living like that. But the idea that, you know, duvets, central heating, double glaze, just things we totally take for granted is what I'm saying there. I take them so for granted, I didn't even think of listing them. You know, when I was talking about things we have, I even forgot some of the basics of technology. But, you know, when it's cold outside, if you think like without this stuff, man, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. Let's see what we got here. From Thomas Johnston, "Zuby, who is your favorite progressive or liberal thinker? What do you do to diversify your consumption?" My favorite liberal thinkers would probably be Brett Weinstein, whose podcast, like I said, I was just on, and his brother Eric. You know, I think they're both like legitimate progressives, certainly way more left-wing than I am, and they're great thinkers, and we actually agree on a lot of stuff. This is sort of what I was saying with the conversation with Brett. I mean, I highly recommend you listen to the podcast, but, you know, we agree on a lot of stuff because most people want everybody wants the world to get better. You know, what is considered better differs a little bit between people, but for the most part, it's not like a lot of people out here are sort of pro-poverty or pro-violence or, you know, pro-unnecessary war or pro-human suffering or anything like that. We all want these things to be alleviated. It's just that people have different views on how best to do it, who should do it. Should it be the government? Should it be charity? Should it be other factors? Does the government help in all circumstances, or does it maybe hinder? I'm someone who's more on the latter side on a lot of things regarding that, outside of the basics. So people just have different ideas and different philosophies, and that's kind of what it is. In terms of other good, progressive or liberal thinkers, I would say, maybe you could put Sam Harris in that category. Like I think when it comes to individual policies, we'd probably disagree on a lot of stuff, but he's a great thinker. Obviously, he's like super atheist, and I'm a believer of God, and I don't share his views on religion, but he's interesting to talk to, and he's smart. Other progressive liberal thinkers, I guess you could include guys like Peter Boghossian, who I think is probably would classify himself as a liberal. I don't know, like anyone in the IDW who's more liberal leaning. Look, anyone who's open to have a conversation, regardless of these labels, like anyone who's smart and is interested in a conversation, there's always things you can learn from people. And like I said, when you do sort of get down to it, if as long as people are being honest and people are being fair and not just name calling, you actually will find like between a legitimate progressive who is honest and a legitimate conservative or libertarian who is honest, they actually will agree on a lot of things. Like I said, it's the solutions and the prescriptions and some degree of the diagnosis that tends to be different. That's really what it is. It's not so much in the sort of the heart or the intentions. You see what I mean? Like people try to paint this picture like, oh, you know, people are on the left or liberal because they're kind and they're compassionate and they care about people and they care about minorities and they care that's how it's sold. That's how it's branded. That's the narrative. And the conservatives, they're selfish and, they want people to suffer and they don't care about the poor. And these libertarians want everybody to die and they don't want anybody to have health care and they don't want roads. And it's just such a mischaracterization and such a disingenuous position on the subject, and it's a shame that people get caught up in it because it's not true. And if you've like met people on different ends of the political spectrum, decent people, then it's not true. If you're a conservative and you have some liberal friends, you know that they're not evil. If you're a liberal and you have conservative friends, they're not evil. So I think people just need to stop sort of buying into that nonsense. Okay, we got another super chat here. I'm going to get to this one. There's a super chat from K Stoneside. He sends $10. Thank you very much, K. I appreciate it. He wrote, not a question, just letting you know that you're one of my favorite people on the internet, right? Keep leveling up, dude. Thank you very much, Kay. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the super chat. Got one here from Joanne G. She also sends $10. Thank you very much, Joanne. Hey, Zuby, just wanted to let you know that I received my OK Dude pink cap. I absolutely love it. Exceptional quality. Does your family follow your basic view of social issues? Okay, firstly, thank you for the super chat, Joanne. And I'm glad you enjoy. I'm glad you got your OK Dude cap, and I'm glad you like it. Please send a picture, post it up online, and send it to me. I'd love to share it with my audience if you are not too camera shy. If you're camera shy, you can just take a picture of the hat, and I'll share that anyway if you don't want to be in the photo. Her question though is, does your family follow your basic view of social issues? That's a good question. I think for the most part, yeah. I think we all have our differences. Like I'm from a big family. There's sort of 7 of us in my immediate family and way, way, way more in the wider family. And I think when it comes to like the fundamental stuff, I think we're mostly on the same page. When it comes to the diagnosis of certain issues or the best way to solve certain issues, then yeah, certainly there's a variation, there's diversity, there's differences there. I think I'm certainly the most libertarian person in my family. I'm probably the most sort of government skeptical person who thinks that the government should probably do less rather than more. I'm probably the most, I don't know, I guess I'd be the most like I live in the UK, so there's no Second Amendment or First Amendment, but I'm probably the most pro Second Amendment person and the most pro First Amendment person. Like I'm a free speech absolutist basically. And I very much support the Second Amendment for American citizens. And, but like I said, when it comes to the core stuff, like, my whole family's, we're all Christian. So our sort of moral compass all comes from the same core place, I believe. But yeah, it's just differences. But, it's all love. It's the same with my friends, man. We've got a lot of variation. I'd say with my friends, there's probably more variation in terms of sort of socio-political views and stuff than there is within my family. But it's all love, man. You know, if people are good, good people are good people. And you can always learn from each other, understand different perspectives. And that's what it's about, you know. That's what it's about. And yeah, thank you very much for the question, Joanne. That's actually an interesting question. It's not something I think I've addressed before. So thank you. Got another super chat here. This one is from Jitters Goggins. He sends $10. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. He wrote, "Is it shameful to seek help, no handouts, when you can't seem to get out of a slump with your business? I give you what I can for now because I value your information." Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is it shameful to seek help when you can't seem to get out of a slump with your business? No, not at all. Not at all. I don't think it's shameful to seek help for anything. Unless you are like planning to commit a crime or something. But I don't think it's, look, if you're trying to improve your life or you're trying to better yourself in any way, shape, or form, then I'm struggling to think of any situation where, in my opinion, it would be shameful to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. I mean, you're not always gonna get it, but most people are fairly altruistic, and most people actually want to help other people. Now, I know if you have a really sort of pessimistic and negative worldview, it may not seem like that or feel like that all the time, but most people actually want to help other people, right? Like if you break down on the side of the road and, you know, or I don't know, your engine won't start and you're pulled over on the side of the road and you're in any kind of like decent place or even in a not so decent place, you know, people will help you. You know, you'll probably get a few guys, you know, they'll stop their car. If they see you need help, they'll come out and they'll help you push your car. I've helped push lots of people's cars, right? If someone sees someone who needs help, right? People will generally help each other. I don't know how many mentions and messages and DMs and emails. Like I get a lot of them and I can't reply to everything, but if I can help with someone with something and it's fast and you know, someone just has a question for me, boom, like, yeah, sure. Like that's what I think there. That's what I think there. I do that probably 100 times a day. If people need like a whole bunch of my time and my energy and my input and my expertise, then I have to charge for that, right? I do coaching, I do consulting, etc. But coming back to your original question, no, there's no shame in seeking help if you need to get out of a slump with your business. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, that's the right thing to do. That's the correct thing to do. So no, don't feel any shame with that. Whatever. I don't know what your business is, but assuming you're talking about yourself, then I wish you all the best with it. And yeah, thank you very much for the super chat. It is appreciated. We got another one here from Ifoma. Thank you very much. She sends £5. She wrote, "Hi Zuby, I'm volunteering for a charity that focus on black men not finding jobs. Any advice for them? Everyone is finding it hard to get jobs, to be honest." Yeah. I'll be honest. I mean, firstly, thank you for the super chat. You know, okay, this maybe I'll give a weird answer here, but I think maybe this is sort of in line with the general theme of the podcast. And I understand this is specifically for black men, but as you've said, look, everyone is finding hard to get jobs right now. And I don't think this is I don't think it's a racial issue. I don't think it's a gender issue. I don't think it's I think this is just the sort of situation right now, right? We've had this coronavirus pandemic. It's hit some people harder than it's hit others. You know, a lot of people have been made unemployed. People are looking for jobs. People are looking for ways to make money, etc. So I would sort of say two things in terms of my advice. I would say number one is to not look at it as a sort of racial issue per se, right? Don't paint yourself into that frame, because I think it sort of limits I think when people start doing that, I think it limits them, right? Because if you start sort of thinking of yourself too much of like, okay, I am a black man, or I am a woman, or I am this, or I am that, and I'm in this position, then I think it sort of limits people's scope as to what they're looking for, because they tend to use that. Some people can use it as a bit of a crutch, right? So rather than sort of trying to be the best person for the job, or be the best person for the business, or the best person, whatever, they sort of lean on the, oh, I'm a woman thing, or, oh, I'm a black thing. And if someone is hiring, or if you've got a customer and you're running a business, they don't actually care, right? People don't really care about these factors, right? People want the person who's going to do the job. So with that said, what I would recommend is just being encouraging people to be the best they can be the best person for the job, build your skills, build valuable skills. And I would also recommend, if possible, I know not everyone is in a position to do this, at least not immediately, but try creating your own thing, right? I don't work for anybody. I've been self-employed for 9 years. I have no boss. Set my own thing. If I want to live stream right now, I just live stream. And I would encourage more and more people to do that. I think everyone at the minimum should at least have a side hustle. And I think that this year has really shown how important that is, actually, because so many people have seen, what's that phrase they say, when the tide, when the tide, is it when the tide goes in or when the tide comes out? I'm not sure which one is which, but when that happens, you see who's swimming naked, right? And I think that's sort of generally used in investment terms, but it's real. When stuff hits the fan and things aren't going perfectly well with the economy and whatever, people get caught with their pants down, right? People who haven't been saving money, they kind of get exposed. People who haven't been investing, who haven't been developing skills, etc., can suddenly find themselves in a situation which is not very comfortable. So I would recommend, for the people you're working with and for anyone in general who's in this situation, would be to just become the best version of yourself, right? Upskill yourselves, learn valuable skills, learn everything you can to be the best person. So whether you are starting a business or you're looking to get hired and you're going for job interviews or you're sending in resumes or whatever, just be the best person, right? Be the best person there, and the rest will fall in place. The rest will fall in place. So that's what I would recommend there. So thanks again for the super chat, and hopefully that is some useful advice there. So yeah, thank you very much for the super chats, guys. I'm going to answer some more questions in about 10 minutes before I wrap up the live stream. But I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to think about here. And I wanted to share a little bit, I think, about where some of my mindset on this stuff comes from. Because I think a lot of people, I think most of my fans and supporters understand, but people who are like the Zuby detractors and Zuby haters who think I don't know. There's a lot of people who have really weird thoughts about me, and a lot of where this thinking comes from for me is it's from a lot of places. I mean, number one is the fact that I have a lot of perspective from being someone who's grown up in multiple countries and travel. I mean, I think I've been to like 33 countries now, and my family background is originally from Nigeria. My parents came to the UK, essentially immigrated over here. Previously worked in Saudi Arabia, and I've been to Nigeria many times. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while. I've been to lots of different countries. And that's part of why I have such a positive outlook on things, especially for people like, when I'm in the UK, say, or when I'm in the US, or look, I understand how a lot of the stuff I have and a lot of the opportunities I have, I understand is somewhat from dint of birth, right? I was born into a great family, great parents, in a good country with lots of opportunities, and in the era I was born, no sort of like crippling discrimination or evil or oppression or anything like that aimed at someone like myself, or honestly aimed at anybody. And so I really recognize that, and I'm grateful for it. And I understand that that's not the situation for everybody, right? Had the circumstances been slightly different, I could have just been born in, I don't know, a really poor village in Nigeria and had a very troubled childhood and not had opportunities and just not had a lot of access to the things that I have access to. And I recognize that there are millions of people around the world, maybe billions of people around the world who live like that. So that's one reason why I try to have a positive mindset and not complain about things all the time, not spend all my time complaining, because like I said, like we're in the top, I'm in the top 1%, right? So many people have so much more stuff to complain about than I do. Another factor is that because I actually genuinely have a lot of respect for, like, part of the reason why I have a lot of disdain for what people call SJWs, social justice warriors. These people who just want to kind of go out on the street and just yell and complain about everything and say that everything is racist, sexist, and bigoted and homophobic, and just scream and complain and yell all day long and just be a nuisance. Part of why I have such a disdain for these kind of people is because I have like a true respect for like actual civil rights leaders, right? You've got a lot of people in my generation who sort of think they're Malcolm X or think they're Martin Luther King, or they think they're the suffragettes fighting for women's equality or what, and they're just not, right? They're just not. Just by going out on the street and screaming Black Lives Matter and blocking a road, that you're not Martin Luther King, you're not Malcolm, you're not doing anything. You're not affecting any change. You're just annoying people, and you're not fighting massive catastrophic injustices like people in the past were fighting, right? So the people who actually legitimately risked their lives and sacrificed and went through like real pain and violence and unfair treatment, etc. Like, I have a lot of respect for all of these people in the past, and a lot of respect for people who do this in modern times as well. So when I see people who are just like LARPing, they're like cosplaying and just acting like they're these huge civil rights justice advocates or whatever, I'm just like, and they're just promoting all this divisive nonsense and using this insane rhetoric, pretending like things are still as bad as they were in 1830 or something. I'm just like, come off it, man. Just go and be a productive member of society. Like I said before, nobody's going to oppress you. People are busy. Nobody cares about you. Like, nobody cares enough to oppress you, right? It doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, Jewish, Asian, man, woman, straight, gay, trans, whatever, right? You may have your own little things that you have to deal with here and there, but in terms of true oppression, in terms of like crippling, oppression, in terms of laws that are set out against you, people who are targeting you, etc., we've passed that, and we've passed that because so many people in the past fought against it. So now here in 2020, we don't need to fight those exact same battles again and again and again, and keep LARPing and pretending that stuff is as bad as it was in those times, right? If someone wants to be a genuine activist and they want to fight for a genuine cause, and they're actually sort of pushing for some useful change or useful policy or what, God bless you. Go out and do that. Do what you believe in, even if I don't support the cause, right? But you can do it in a way that is respectable and is useful, and doesn't just antagonize people and raise the temperature and add to the division, etc. Especially once again, when we're living in this sort of magical era, just don't make it worse, right? It's like people are trying to make things worse. I spoke about this on a previous live stream. Things are so good. So be careful not to make them worse, right? We all want things to be better. But a lot of times when people are trying to so-called improve things, they end up making them worse. So we just got to be careful. We got to be careful with it. But that's where my own thought comes from in this stuff. And that's why I'm very sort of optimistic, and I try to break people out of like victimhood mindset, and I encourage people to embrace each other and not be divisive and be kind to each other and understand that they have their own, like I go for like real self-empowerment. Again, not like fake empowerment nonsense, like real self-empowerment, like the ball's in your hands, right? People aren't trying to oppress you. So stop oppressing yourself. See the opportunity that is out there every single day in front of you and seize it and grab it, because no one is going to stop you. No one's going to stop you. Whatever your characteristics, whatever you identify as, belong to, whatever. Like, if you work hard and you deliver value to the world, you're going to do well. That's just how it works. That's just how it works. Okay. Finally, I'm going to I'm going to get to the last few questions here, and then I'm going to close it out. I don't want to run over an hour, but if you want to drop a question, like I said, I will get to the super chats first. I'm going to prioritize any super chats, but if you leave a normal question, I will still try to get to it. So let's see what we got here. Got a super chat here from Isabel. Sends £5. Thank you very much, Isabel. I appreciate it. Shira, what are your thoughts on the BLM militia seen in London over the weekend? Oh, good grief. I don't know is this the one? I did see something on social media where there were a bunch of people sort of in like sort of Black Panther type outfits marching around doing some kind of like step routine. It almost looked like a sort of choreographed dance or something. Is that what it was? I don't even know if it was in the UK, or I thought it was in the US. Maybe that was in the UK. But the very idea of there being a BLM militia in London, like, what? This is what I'm talking about. People LARPing, right? When I say LARPing, by the way, that means like live action role playing. So it's like you're acting almost like a video game character or something like, and it's it's just silly. It's just silly, you know, like people have a right to do whatever they want, right? When I say stuff like this, when I'm criticizing stuff, I'm not saying people don't have a right to do whatever. You know, you could dress up as a cat and run around on all fours on the street if you want, you know, God bless you. But is it useful? Is it helpful? I mean, what's a BLM militia in London even for? This is the problem because the UK always likes to sort of inherit the weird aspects from America. And I have tons of criticism of the BLM organization and movement, which I've voiced before. But even the idea, so even if you talk about what BLM are, tend to be focused on, the idea of police brutality, I mean, or like police killings. I mean, in the UK, this is just not, it's not a real problem. Like, it's not even honest to pretend that this is a big problem in the UK. Like the police in the UK barely ever kill anybody. Like it's not common. It's not even, it's not common in the States either, right? I mean, but it's more common than it is in the UK. So the idea that you're just going to kind of take that movement and then put on uniforms and start going around like you're, I don't know, Malcolm X or some sort of Black Panther, it's just like, it's just a waste of time, you know? I mean, just go to work, set up a business, work hard, like you'll be fine. It'll do a lot more than putting on outfits and LARPing around. But if you want to do it, okay. But you know, people are going to ridicule you, even if you might think it looks cool. You might think it looks like awesome, like, you know, look at my look at my beret, look at my black boots, whatever. But what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? Is it useful? No. If someone can tell me how it's useful, then happy to hear. But I don't see it. Okay, next question here. This is one from Bailey. Super chat. She sends $5. She wrote. She just quoted me. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about you, Zuby 2020. You know, it's so funny. Like I say that in the most positive way. I don't even mean that in a negative way, right? Like obviously people care about your well-being, but yeah, nobody cares about you enough to oppress you, right? Like most people, like I say, people are busy. People are getting on with their lives. People are trying to make money, stay healthy, raise their families, you know, do some cool stuff, travel, etc. There aren't a lot of people waking up in the morning saying like, okay, how can I oppress people today? Like, who can I oppress? Let me wake up. It's been a while. It's been a while since the last patriarchy meeting. I'm ready to, you know, put the boot down on some women, you know? It's just not the reality of the world. If people care about you, they probably care about you in the positive sense, but not in the way that they're going to go massively out of their way to make things very difficult for you, especially based on, you know, some immutable characteristic like your race or your gender, etc. And like I said, in history, that has not always been the case. That's not the norm throughout history. That's not the norm throughout the world. There's been all kinds of horrible oppression, and we are in this magical state where we have mostly overcome it in this part of the world. So yes, we should fight to continue to, you know, maintain that and win that battle and make sure we don't backslide, which is something I've expressed a lot of concern about, right? This backsliding to things becoming worse again. And yeah, that's it. But yeah, it's a good quote. You can put that up on your wall, Bailey. Thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate that. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to answer like, got a couple minutes left. I'm going to answer 3 more questions. So I'm just going to flick through and see what questions we got here. Let's see what we've got here. Someone said, Zuby, are you all good? You seem kind of sad. Yeah, I'm totally fine, man. I'm totally fine. Okay, question from Amber. Zuby, I would like to know which news sources you find most reliable, e.g. BBC or someone else suggested Sky News. It's a good question. Look, I'll be honest. I think the news in the UK, the news media in the UK, I think is a lot less partisan than it is in the States. It's not perfectly unbiased at all, you know, especially in the physical newspapers. But you know, if you watch Sky News, BBC, etc., I think they're decently fair. If they're biased at all, it's not massively in either direction. I think that both of those sources are pretty fair. What I generally do, though, is I'd recommend just going for, if you really want to look into a specific thing, is see what's being said on a range of different mediums. Maybe take like 5 or 6 mediums, even if some of them have their known biases, right? If something is in the Guardian and in the Telegraph and in the Times and the Spectator and on BBC, see what they're saying, and the stuff that they all agree on and are reporting on, you can probably take as fact, right? If it's an opinion piece or something, you can read a few different opinions, see what people think, but the news itself should always be nonpartisan. That's kind of my thoughts there. So look at a few different ones, but I don't think that it's as egregious as it is in some other countries in terms of the biases. Okay, and I'm going to see one more question. Let's see. Oh, here we go. When is the Kanye collab? Yo, we'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully one day. I have a strong feeling I'm going to meet Kanye West at some point. I don't know why or when it'll happen, but I tend to speak these things into existence, and most of the people I say that I'm going to meet, it does happen. I met a lot of people last year, if you've been following, and a lot more to come. So we'll see. We will see. I'd love to, I'd love to work with Kanye in some capacity. If we don't work, I'd love to just, meet him and shake his hand and have a little chat with him. That would be cool. Maybe we'll get him on the Real Talk with Zuby podcast and break the internet. Okay, so that's it for the live stream. Thank you very much to everybody who's tuned in. It's been a lot of fun. I'll be planning to be back here next week at the same time, 8 p.m. BST, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you very much. Once again, I'm going to put a couple links here. If you want to support me on Patreon, I am on Patreon. If you want to support me on locals.com, you can also support me on there, teamzuby.locals.com. You can support me on either of those channels. Or if you just want to check out my merchandise, of course, you can go to teamzuby.com and support me there. Strong advice, I've still got some paperback copies available if you want to get a signed copy of my book. Those are now on my website, teamzuby.com. But thank you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will be back on Friday with a brand new Real Talk with Zuby podcast. And I will also be back next week with the weekly live stream. So God bless you guys. Have a blessed day and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.